Welcome to the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast. Here are your hosts, DJ Marcotte and John Soroyce. Enjoy the show.
Are you ready?
Ready.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Am I ready?
You are.
We're all ready.
We are.
We're already ready. Welcome back to the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast, the working class podcast. We are the blue collar ballers. I'm here with John, Tom, and myself, DJ. You can check us out on our Facebook page at Armchair Fantasy Football, on Twitter at Armchair FF Pod. I'm on Twitter at Armchair Kingpin. John is on Twitter at John2977. He's banging his microphone. You can email us at armchairfb@gmail.com, and you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbean, YouTube, Twitch, well, hopefully Twitch, and Facebook Live. Just search Armchair Fantasy Football. So have you guys ever gotten on the interstate or maybe on a long road and you are behind somebody or you're near somebody that has their turn signal on, and they have their turn signal on for like 4 miles and they're just completely oblivious? You guys ever experienced that before?
Every day.
Every day? Wow, I mean, I don't see it every day. So as I'm coming here and I'm stuck in traffic and I see people, everywhere and like within like 2 feet of each other, and places are opening that shouldn't open, and all kinds of things are going on that would indicate a lack of social distancing. It occurred to me that our governor, Janet Mills, a.k.a. Austin Powers up here in sunny Maine, is that person in the driver's seat of that car with their turn signal on and completely oblivious to it, because we have yet to open our state up, but there's a lot of action going on, man. I sat in like 20 minutes of traffic just to get here. Of course, there was some construction going on, but are we ready to open up, fellas? What do you think?
As far as I know, she's opened up campground starting Friday.
Really?
June 1st for a lot of
But
stuff.
if you
No
are
restaurants?
But if you are an out-of-towner, you must quarantine for 14 days. Which,
So that's another turn signal moment. That's not happening, I don't think. So hopefully we can get open back up here in the great state of Maine. I also see a ton of Massachusetts plates everywhere. So Janet Mills, turn your turn signal off. You might be a little oblivious to some of the stuff that's going on. We're just having a little fun with our governor. I really don't have a dog in the fight. I guess I'd like to see things opened up. What would you guys prefer?
I think for our state, for our economy, for our state, we thrive off tourism.
Yeah.
If we don't get this tourism, it's going to completely kill Maine.
As a guy that grew up in Old Orchard Beach, and Tom, you pretty much did too, I'm okay with a year without tourists. It's not exactly a year without Santa Claus to me. I can live without a year without tourists. I'm fine with that. For me, I just, John and I work in the grocery business, and there's a lot of changes that have occurred, and I'd like to get back to normal a little bit. So for me, I'd like to see things
I feel
open
like
up.
people don't have enough groceries. I see the same customers over and over.
Well, the problem is, John, they don't have anywhere to go, so they go to the grocery store.
So they eat. They eat.
So hopefully, well, and I don't even think it's that. I think it's a social thing. It's something to get them out of the house. And if you only have one place to go, you're going to go there. What about you, Tom? You're furloughed at this moment.
I'm the one that's eating at
And you're okay with that for now?
20 plus pounds this last month.
Oh,
and a
nice.
half.
The other funny thing is, it's interesting. I've heard recently that if you are offered your job back, so Tom, you're furloughed right now, and let's say they called you tomorrow and said, time to come back, and you're like, yeah, I'm not really ready for that. You could, and you're not on unemployment because you got a thing worked out with your employer. But if you're on unemployment, they're going to snatch that right away. They consider that a job offer if you're asked to come back. And if you decline a job offer when you're on unemployment, you don't get unemployment anymore. So a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, but it would appear that the shift is going back toward opening things up a little bit. John, you mentioned something before the show about Major League Baseball. I think it was Major League Baseball. I think you were talking about wearing face masks while they're playing.
No, it's actually, they're going to be wearing masks now. The part of our news will entail this about the masks.
So Major League Baseball isn't wearing masks?
No. right now the talks, I haven't heard anything about NBA. Baseball is talking about wearing masks while possibly playing. The players,
So Major League Baseball.
might as well report this news now while we're talking about masks, but the league and the players union are working on N95 or COVID masks for somehow attaching to the helmet as a face mask as well. So a mask, or we're wearing a mask underneath.
Oh, so kind of like a visor, a la Mike Vick, but on the face mask.
But on the face mask. But there's also talks of wearing it underneath the helmet. So they're just trying to iron all this out before anything goes final.
Yeah, I mean, it's just funny. Like, I think a lot of that stuff is just window dressing, because I'm going to tackle you, but I really want to have something on that face mask to protect me. It's just interesting how we as humans kind of determine what's right and what's not right, and what's a good strategy and what's not. I hope it ends soon. Sadly, and we don't talk about COVID too much, but sadly, I don't think it's going to end anytime soon in terms of actually the count. I think it ends when there's a vaccine, right? Is that pretty much the case?
There's supposedly, I don't know how many different companies working on different types of vaccines, antibodies, but the problem is this coronavirus is taking curves in other places. So a perfect example, South Korea opened up a couple weeks ago when full blown, everything open. Now they've shut back down. Cases doubled. There's also been cases of where people already had coronavirus and have gotten it again. So, and then there's also a rare one, I guess. I don't know. Kids are getting it, but they're showing spots on their body and all this. And there's just so many turns in this that I don't think this is going away anytime soon, the social distancing part.
Yeah. Well, I think we should start calling it selective social distancing. I mean, look at us.
I agree with that.
We're a prime example of that right now. I was thinking about putting one of you guys over there. I don't know. We'll look at that next time around.
The other thing I saw,
I'm gonna see the back of somebody's head on the camera.
The other thing on social media I saw was a restaurant opened up in New Jersey. I think it was yesterday or the day before. They did bumper tables. A person's inside the table with a bumper, almost like bumper boats.
I think they should have armed guards, and if you get within 6 feet of somebody, you get shot in the leg. Does that sound reasonable?
It won't happen.
That would be no, they probably did it in China.
The funny thing is, we called them all crazy for what they were doing, but when they went on full down lockdown, and who knows who got killed from this too. I mean,
yeah.
All the secret stuff.
Well, that's probably the most Rona news that we've ever gone through, or commentary that we've ever gone through, and it's probably the most we'll ever go through. So let's move on from the Rona.
Start spreading the news.
Well, we'll start off nice, hot and heavy with social media.
No doubt.
Talk. So
you have no idea.
NFL on Fox on Instagram is where this all started. There was a little.
Do you need help with this, or are you good?
No, we can talk about it.
I just want to make sure.
So on
I don't want to cut you off.
You just did. So supposedly NFL Fox posted a poll: which is tougher? A, make a catch while guarded by Stephon Gilmore, or B, break up a pass while guarding Michael Thomas. Well, Devontae Parker chimed in and answered A, make a catch while guarded by Stephon Gilmore. Well,
can I go through this real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've got it in succession. Thanks to ESPN.com, by the way. I don't have a writer here, but it is from ESPN.com. So, Parker said A, indicating the Stephon Gilmore option. And then, let's see. Sorry, I'm failing you. Thomas replied, for you, yes. Go run some numbers up, then you can talk. Which is kind of mean-spirited just for a guy answering a poll. And then he goes on to say, I lapped you. You've been in the league longer than me, first rounder. So Parker, who I feel like definitely came off as the more adult here, said, got some hard feelings there, brother. Let me get targeted 300 times a game. And then Thomas continued the spat by writing, in other words, you weak. They don't even put your name in the same sentence as me. Remember that. Believe that. You still got nothing. You still not going to do nothing. It took you 6 years and 17 weeks to have a good game. That was pretty good. GTFOH, which I believe means get the F out of here.
Yep.
Blame your parents, not no QB. So that was, again, Thomas comes off a little immature here. You're bringing somebody's family into it.
He seems salty. All Parker did was answer the question. He didn't chime anything. And then Thomas explodes
of course, Parker says, "Quit crying, brah." Parker told Thomas, including several laughing emojis. And it goes on. After a few more jabs by each receiver, Thomas posted in the final words telling Parker, "You can't even get a seat at the table." So, looks like Parker just moved on from that. This is funny, and frankly, go ahead. Let me know what you think about this, guys. John, we'll start.
Why
with
is
you.
Thomas so salty? Because he answered a poll question. That's what I want to know. What caused him to be so Parker in this whole conversation?
Maybe part of the question was cut off, and he couldn't read the end of it. I mean, that's a possibility.
It's possible.
Right there.
It is quite possible.
But Tom? What do you think of this whole rigmarole?
I think it's great. Bunch of men act like 15-year-old girls on the internet. Cat fights.
I think that's offensive to 15-year-old girls, Tom.
I have one, so it's okay.
We need to put you through our sensitivity training over here. Yeah, I think it's funny. You guys continue to talk amongst yourselves on this because I'm going to do a little bit of quick math on it. So I'll start with you, Tom. Who do you think is right in this? And who do you think came off as better, I guess, came off as the winner of that exchange, Tom?
Parker came off as a winner, but Thomas is right, though. He is not at his table. He's not even in the same room.
Okay. John?
Parker's had one good season. I mean, he was the bigger person and more mature about this, but Thomas is completely right. He's been the better ball player.
All right. Okay.
So I agree with...
Well, let me do some more math, and I'm going to come back to you guys on that because I think I might have some intriguing numbers that I can throw at you in terms of targets and what those targets would have equated to last year. So, John, go ahead and continue the news. I'm going to do a little hard math here.
Miami Dolphins hopeful Preston Williams will be ready for week 1. As it looks right now, if Preston Williams were to come back and play, he would be on the outside and Parker managing the other side, and then in the slot would be Albert Wilson. Okay. So, kind of, I don't know if that's a smoke screen or not. I don't think it is, but it's something to monitor. If Preston Williams is not ready for week 1, Parker's value for week 1 and 2 could be really good.
Cool.
Okay. Next news, Tom Brady was spotted throwing to Mike Evans, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate, and 2 other teammates. So he's already developing a chemistry with these guys. And from what I have read and seen, Mike Evans was catching everything. Over the shoulder. I mean, I guess the question is there more chemistry with Mike Evans than there is Chris Godwin?
Godwin wasn't even there, so neither was Gronk. So
Godwin wasn't there. That's a great point. Gronk doesn't need to be there, right?
Exactly. He doesn't. He's had plenty of time with him.
So I mean, what do you make of that, John? We kind of buried Evans a little bit on the last show.
It's encouraging to see him working with him, but O.J. Howard was also there. He wasn't even. Was he on the team last year? Because you couldn't tell.
But what does that tell you? So to me, and Tom kind of hinted toward it, to me that tells you that he's with guys that he has to build chemistry with. Tom said it perfect. Gronk wasn't there. Well, Gronk doesn't need to build chemistry with Brady. You know what I mean? And it would appear that O.J. Howard does. I mean, Bruce Arians hates him. Like he's just like some child that he's disowning.
But would Brady have a say on O.J. Howard get on that field more if he develops good enough chemistry either, too? So,
chicken or the egg, I guess. But it's good that what's good about this is that Brady is trying to build chemistry with these guys, and I really see this as a really big bounce back year for Tom Brady. I mean, these are other than that year, and Tom, maybe you can dispute this. I think he had Hernandez, Gronk, Moss, and Welker. Am I wrong?
No.
I'm not wrong, or I am wrong?
They didn't come in 2010. Moss was out of the picture when they...
Okay, so Moss was gone.
Yeah.
So Moss, Welker, or Hernandez, Gronk, Welker. Probably, and you guys can also dispute this, probably the 2 best receiving groups that he had prior to being with the Buccaneers. Would you guys agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. This is better than those. Would you agree with that? You got Godwin, you got Evans, you got Gronk. Older, understandably older, but also Cameron Brate's no joke, man. You got O.J. Howard, a really talented guy. There's a couple other receivers on the team, and their names are escaping me, but I mean, they're no joke either, you know. And then Keyshawn Vaughn in the backfield. I think this is probably the best receiving group he's ever had. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not.
He's already got 2 Pro Bowlers. We're up to 3, actually. Gronk, Evans, Godwin. Period. So he's already started with 3 Pro Bowl caliber players, and everything on top of that is just gravy. I would agree with you that this is probably the best arsenal he has had as a selection to start a season.
So, you ready for my math? So what I did was I took Devontae Parker's average per target and based it on if he would have 185 targets like Michael Thomas did. Michael Thomas finished with 1,725 yards, and Parker would have finished with 1,739. So you can argue that he was right. And also, Parker has about a 12% touchdown rate, and Michael Thomas's was 6%. So you can argue that Parker was right. Tom, you're probably going to want to strangle me for saying that, but you could argue that. Parker has some level of, proof to his argument there. Do I think that would happen necessarily? I don't know. I think you would say Michael Thomas is a better wide receiver, but doesn't mean he's more talented than Parker. Just interesting.
That's a good way to put it, but it's also a different case of scenario. Parker landed on a team that's, been rebuilding I don't know how many years now.
I mean, if we're going on career, it's not even close. I mean, Thomas has only had less than 9 touchdowns once in his career, and he's never had less than 1,100 yards. Parker cannot say those things, so it's just interesting.
Maybe that's why he was quiet for the rest of the conversation, possibly?
I don't know, man. Like, Thomas bringing the family into it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like, that's a little bit... See, I look at that as crossing the line a little bit.
He seemed a little cocky by the way his messages
were. It wasn't even
were.
cocky. He seemed... on the defensive. He seemed like he was on the defensive. So we'll move on from that. But that was just, I don't know. That's, how do you not eat stuff like that up? I love it.
Okay, Raheem Mostert said he's put on more muscle to shoulder the workload.
Yeah, man. I look at this backfield, Tom, and I like Raheem Mostert as a lead back, but my heart of hearts, it's not going to happen because they don't really utilize that type of a backfield. What's the split, do you think, between him and Tevin Coleman? And does somebody else creep into that workload as well?
It's going to be probably almost a 50-50 just because they just like to run the ball 55% of the time out there. So.
And they might even work somebody else into there. John, what do you think?
You're
a Mostert guy, aren't you?
I like Mostert. I think he runs his heart out. What is this, 6 different teams he's been with before he actually had a decent landing spot? I can't really give a split percentage because Shanahan's always been known for riding the hot hand. So if Tevin Coleman blows up one week, he'll get the bulk of the carries.
Yeah.
And Mostert, he's always rode the hot hand, so it's hard to do a split. So I'm saying 50-50 down the middle.
Yeah, and I don't know what Singletary's ADP is. It's probably higher than Mostert's, but I'd rather have a Devin Singletary over a Mostert every day of the week because Mostert's ceiling might be higher, but Singletary I think will be more steady. Jordan Howard, there's another example.
Yeah, if you're gonna draft Mostert, I think you got to get Coleman. You got to go for you got to get both of them, and that's risky, I think, because their ADPs aren't that far off.
No,
but it's also you don't know. Let's say you pick up Coleman, who's starting the week, or who's gonna get the hot hand? I should say, is it Coleman that week? So I just say
don't know.
Stay away from it. It's easier.
We'll see what Tom has to say about Devin Singletary shortly here, but what else you got?
So, Kansas City Chiefs, McCole Hardman to see increased role on offense. He may or may not, didn't indicate, but he could be taken off punt return, even though he's been doing very well. But an expanded role on offense is something we want to see.
As he should. Why is Sammy Watkins still there? I don't know why they wouldn't have cut him, honestly. The guy just doesn't contribute anymore.
I don't know if he cares anymore. It's hard to tell with him.
Well, and especially since he won the Super Bowl, I actually thought that Watkins was going to hang it up after that because he did make some comments during the playoffs that if they won, he was going to consider retirement. I don't know if he's got a few houses he's still got to pay off. I mean, he's this supposed home run hitter, and there were times in his career where he was. I mean, he was 2015, he had 17.4 yards per reception. 2014, 16, and 17 was right around 15. Dropped all the way to 12.9 in 2019 and just hit barely 13 in 2018. I think he's had over 1,000 yards once in his career. Last year, he played 14 games, started in 13 of them, and only had 52 receptions for 673 yards. So to me, why wouldn't you give Hardman the chance to leapfrog Watkins? It's a no-brainer, and I think it might happen this year. I'm high on Hardman this year.
I think Watkins is going to be a casualty next year. I think he'll be with the team this year, but
I think it's a contract year for him, but I could be wrong. So if that's the case, I don't think will be around. And just real quick on his touchdown numbers too. He had 3 touchdowns and he had 2 fumbles. He had 1 more touchdown than he had fumbles. Tom, what do you think of the Watkins-Hardman dynamic?
Watkins is just a weird dude. He's got like voices in his head or
Yeah.
something. They're like live or dead.
Interesting. I guess I haven't read the Sammy Watkins biography yet, but it sounds like I should.
He's interesting. I should find
Okay.
it for
You like Hardman?
I love Hardman. He's another Tyreek Hill.
He is. He really
they're
is.
the same guy.
Yeah.
are you saying Sammy Watkins is that kid from The Sixth Sense? I see dead people.
No, probably more like Ralph Wiggum from The Simpsons, maybe. I don't know. Anyway,
So while we're on Chiefs news, Kansas City Chiefs.
he's not. You know what? He isn't fantasy relevant.
Kansas City Chiefs offense coordinator says he is not concerned with Clyde Edwards-Helaire blocking, saying that he's going to come in and work his tail off, and that Helaire is just another piece of the puzzle.
I will speak my piece about Clyde Edwards-Helaire shortly here. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'll tell you what I think about him, and I'll tell you what everybody else thinks about him in that organization.
I'm just reporting the news. That was from the OC. Hayden Hurst is working out with Matt Ryan in Atlanta. Hurst says he's been driving back and forth from Jacksonville to Atlanta for the last 4 weeks. That's great news.
Homeboy can't take a flight. Like, what's? I mean, they're still running planes, right?
Yeah, but Atlanta to Jacksonville's not that far.
I guess it's not. Is it?
sure.
You lived
Next-
down there for a while.
You
A
think
couple
he's
hours away.
Do you think he's actually
a
driving?
couple miles?
Couple hours.
Oh, I think it's a couple miles away. I'm going to get you a map. So I guess that's not that bad. I don't know. He's rich, though. Is he? Is he rich yet?
Still on rookie contract. I don't know
Yeah,
if he's
true.
rich.
Yeah, he's probably
Even if he's driving, but
sleeping in his car on the way.
it's inspiring news though. He's working with the new quarterback
I
already.
think Hayden Hurst is going to be a nice fit there, and I don't know that he's going to see the targets that Austin Hooper has. He's going to be one of those tight ends. He's going to be one of those tight ends guys that drives you crazy this year. I really think he is, but he's definitely going to have some games where he pops. I think he's going to be Austin Hooper 2 years ago. That's what I think. That's my take.
Okay, 2 more things to news, and then we will be done. Roger Goodell says teams can no longer block a offense or defense coordinator interviews.
Really? Could they before? Is that a thing? It must be a thing.
Yeah, it was.
Playoffs, you can.
Playoffs, you can't talk to them until after the playoffs were done. Now it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, because is the interview really going to affect whether you win the game or not? I mean, it's probably a 2-hour interview.
It's still a distraction, they say.
That's true. I can understand that. Yeah, but apparently the teams must have voted on this. I don't know. Okay, cool.
So, last bit of news: Jay Glazer, aka Fox, aka The Athletic, says that Taysom Hill will be the guy after Drew Brees retires.
I saw this and I wasn't really surprised by it because it seems like they're priming him for that. I think he's like. He might be 30 right now. I could be wrong on that. If you want to look that up, John.
Taysom Hill?
Yeah, I think he's 30 years old, so it's a bit of a late start. But we've seen that before with the Kurt Warners of the world. I don't even think he was 30 though, Tom. Was he when he got off the bag stand at the grocery store? And
No, he's like 26,
yeah, so
27.
he was still younger than that. But yeah, they love this kid. They just signed him to a $15 million a year deal. I could be wrong on that. They sent him to a pretty good deal. They like him there, and I think they picked Winston up just because he came at such a good price, and maybe add some competition just in case. And people are like, really, Taysom? I just talked to a guy today. Taysom Hill? Why would they do that? Taysom Hill is the future of the quarterback position, and it might be the current of the quarterback position. The way some of these guys are playing, he can throw and he can run, and that's what.
And he can
sounds
catch.
like.
He can catch,
He
too.
can catch, yeah. But I like what Taysom Hill brings to the table. I've got him on my dynasty team, so hearing this was great for me from a dynasty standpoint. But I don't see why he couldn't do it. They need to get him out there a little bit more, though. I mean, I'd like to see a situation where he runs, not a whole series, but at least throws some passes out there, because he's always out there with, like, trick plays and stuff like that. But we've never really seen what he's made of as a quarterback. That'd be interesting to see if they do that this year with an aging Drew Brees out there, give him a breather, so to speak. We'll see.
When he starts the season, he will be 30 years old.
That's what I thought. So he's right near there. So maybe the next Kurt Warner, who knows? But when you get 30, guys, you guys know this. Tom, you know what it's like to get 50, right?
Close.
Not quite yet. When you get 30, things don't feel the same.
It's worse when you're 40.
So he might not be as fast at 31 than he is than he is even now or last year. So, but I like this whole dynamic. I think it's cool and can't wait to see how it goes with Taysom Hill. All right, John, you ready to get into the top 24 running backs?
Sure.
Starting with David Montgomery at 24, which there was a bit of contention on Mr. Monty Burns, as we like to call him. John did prefer Mark Ingram over Montgomery, but Tom and I overruled him. So here he is at number 24, but certainly not without his warts. Montgomery gets quite the bad rap, but let's not forget just how bad of an offensive line that he played behind. This is an O-line that ranked 30th in RB yards, 31st in power success, 31st in power rank, which is the percentage of runs on third or fourth down, 2 yards or less to go, that achieved a first down or a touchdown. So short yardage situations that achieved a first down or a touchdown. Also includes runs on first and goal or second and goal from the 2-yard line or closer. This is the only statistic that includes quarterbacks, but in this case, it's attached to David Montgomery. 31st and second level yards, which is the team's running backs' yards earned between 5 and 10 yards past the line of scrimmage, divided by total running back carries. So, yeah, stick with me on the math equations here. To translate, not good. 30th in open yard fields. That is yards which the team's running backs earn more than 10 yards past the line of scrimmage, divided by the total running back carries. Horrible there. 29th in adjusted line yards. Adjusted line yards is a formula that takes all running back carries and assigns responsibility to the offensive line. Horrible there. Let's talk about Mitch. Mitch Trubisky. Team finished 12th in pass plays for game, and this is what Trubisky did with it. So that's not bad. 12th in the league in pass plays per game. That's good. So Mitch threw the ball a lot. And this is the return on the investment that he gave the Chicago Bears. 7th in interceptable passes, 21st in passing attempts, 27th in passing touchdowns. Those are bad numbers, guys. Toward the bottom of the starting quarterbacks. 26th in money throws, 27th in pressured completion, 38th. There are 32 starting quarterbacks in the league last I checked, guys, right? Is that where we're at still in the NFL?
Yeah, but when
He finished 38th in red zone completion, so there are backups that did a better job than him here. You heard that right. 31st in production premium, 30 in fantasy points per drop back, 27th in accuracy, 32nd in true passer rating. This guy was as bad as it gets, and we all agree that even if he starts a season, it ain't going to last long. I think Nick Foles is going to take over. We've discussed that in the past. David Montgomery was probably the most disadvantaged running back in the league, and even still finished with a 4.05 efficiency ranking, which isn't the best, but it also finished better than Melvin Gordon, James Conner, Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell, Austin Eckler, and Dalvin Cook, to name a few in that category. Montgomery still managed to finish third among running backs in broken tackles, finished 13th in first down, 10th in yards before contact, 13th in evaded tackles, 13th in juke rate, 14th in game script, and most importantly, Montgomery actually finished 8th in goal line carries. Montgomery may have averaged a paltry 3.7 yards per carry, but averaged 4.22 yards per carry in the last 5 games. With what this guy was given, I don't think he did a bad job necessarily. I mean, he was, like I said, as disadvantaged as it gets at the running back position. If they can do a little bit with that offensive line, and hopefully Foles gets in there sooner rather than later, you could see David Montgomery provide some pretty solid fantasy outings for you in a season where he wasn't that bad necessarily. Tom, what's your take on Mr. David Montgomery, Monty Burns?
I like Montgomery. He led college football 2 years in a row in broken tackles, his last junior and senior year.
And he's still doing it in the NFL. He's right among the top.
Kyle Long, his worst offensive lineman, the worst offensive lineman in football, retired, so that helps a lot too.
Yeah. So next man up there. Can't get any worse in that situation. John?
I think Montgomery's he's got the ability, I think, and the characteristics to be a good back. The team just not surrounded with the personnel to do it is I think is the problem. You have a quarterback that's not even should be a backup quarterback. Your line is one of the worst in the league. I look at it this way: any improvement they have made will just help him in the right direction.
Yeah.
But they also, I think the biggest opportunity I think he had, and it's not something to blame for him. They need to get him involved more in the passing game, something they didn't do a lot of last year.
Yeah, and let's not forget, and I think a lot of people have, you're talking about a guy that averaged double-digit fantasy points last season with 10.1 and had more than half his games were finished in double digits. On that offensive, behind that offensive line, on that offense with that quarterback. Give him a little bit, give him something, and I think he could provide a pretty good fantasy season, even maybe as a running back too, honestly, guys. I really, truly believe that he'll finish there, and we've got him ranked there. So, moving on. Next up on the list, I believe it's Mr. James Conner out of Pittsburgh. He's going to have some folks nipping on his heels this year probably, but he is, as we've last heard, the starting running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tom, what do you got on James Conner this year?
Hope no one's on his heels because he'll be out again for an injury.
That's good. That was good.
That's the key with Conner.
John didn't find that funny.
No, I smiled.
I liked it. Anyway, continue.
Conner cannot stay healthy since college. He had a torn ACL in 2015. Then he had Hodgkin's lymphoma. Then in 2017, as a rookie, he had MCL surgery. 2018, he had a lower leg injury. And then last year, a knee injury, a shoulder, and a shoulder. He cannot stay healthy. When he does, he averages 4.54 yards a carry.
Which is fine.
He catches 34 passes last year for 89.5% catch rate. He's got 3 or 4 running backs on his heels out there with Snell, McFarland, and Jalen Samuels. He doesn't last a year with them.
Yeah, you may be right about that. I like McFarland a lot. You kind of like Snell, Tom. I mean, I like James Conner. The one thing about Pittsburgh, though, is they run one running back typically. Last year was kind of an outlier because it was just a crap show. It was so much of a crap show over there. So I think you're right. My instinct is that James Conner starts the season as the starting running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I don't even necessarily, Tom, think that it's going to be an injury that paves the way for Anthony McFarland. I mean, these guys could just straight up outperform him and take the job. Probably more likely, John, that it's an injury, though, right?
Connor's track record,
and for the record, we don't like to project injury.
Yeah,
Connor's it's the Keenan Allen rule. We don't project injury, but you can't ignore it.
Connor's track record shows that he is injury prone. It's simple as that. The question is when, and I'm not hoping for an injury, but Connor didn't get his contract renewed. He's going to play lights out, and I think he knows that, especially when they drafted McFarland this year. There's a reason they drafted McFarland. So either Connor's going to hide his injuries this year, and like you said, he's going to start off the starting back. But the question, does he hold the job? I don't think so. I think by week 6 or 7, he loses the job.
Okay, so not a good outlook for James Conner here. So my recommendation, and I think I've said this before, you draft James Conner, you draft Anthony McFarland, or Benny Snell, whomever you think is the next man up. I happen to think it's McFarland. You can get those guys for pretty cheap. Although McFarland's 80. If it's Snell, you're getting the guy for free. And those folks that are going after McFarland, whose ADP is not high, but it's definitely, you're not getting him for free like you would Benny Snell. So if it's Snell, that's a league winner right there at where he's going in the draft. But I definitely think you handcuff. Connor's one of those guys you have to handcuff. But it's a little murkier because you're not really sure who the next man up is. I don't like the situation, so I'm avoiding it. I don't want to avoid it because I know what kind of fruit the Pittsburgh running back is going to bear once we figure out who that is. But, man, it's a gamble. You're rolling the dice on this one. Anthony McFarland's probably the only guy out of the 3 that I'll draft. That's just me personally. What about Devin Singletary? Don't treat me bad here, Tom, because I like me some Devin Singletary. What do you got on him?
Oh, I like him too as well.
Nice.
He's 5'7", 203, so he's on the smaller side. He only ran a 4.6, but he runs faster on the field. If you watch him out there, he looks like he runs like 4.3, 4.4. He had 181 touches last year. He had 151 attempts for 775 yards, only 2 touchdowns, 29 receptions, 194 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But if he reminds me of LaShawn McCoy out there.
Yep.
The same back.
Undersized. He can catch passes. He ranked in the top 10 in efficiency. So I like that about him. I like his vision. He's got very good vision. He has it. He just knows what to do out there. Kind of like Le'Veon Bell, but a different type of player. Like, he's got his style, and his style works for him. Are you worried about Zach Moss at all?
He's a number 2 for him. That's
agree.
fine. He'll take some of the carries away. He's not the biggest guy in the world. He'll give 15 carries and give 10 to 15 to Moss.
I totally agree with you. They moved on from Frank Gore, thank God. And Frank Gore took a bigger piece of the pie than I would have liked to see, obviously, especially the fact that Singletary is just better than him and significantly more efficient. Zach Moss, I think, is brought in because you need depth at the position. And I look at Zach Moss as a stat compiler in college in a really bad conference where you can just eat up the opposing defenses. And I look at Devin Singletary as a legit real deal. My comp for him is LaShawn McCoy. And what I saw from him in his rookie year makes me think nothing but that. I really like this kid. I really think he's going to surprise people. His upside is capped because of 2 things. I don't know how many passes he's going to catch. I hope that he gets the opportunity because he can do it. So that's one thing. Josh Allen's the other thing that kind of caps his upside. But I really, really like Devin Singletary this year, John.
I think Singletary can surprise a lot of people this year. Gore's out of the picture. I get what you're saying about Allen capping his upside because he will take some of those rushes away, especially possibly goal line. We don't even know. But I like his upside based on the fact that Diggs coming into this offense, another piece of the puzzle. They were missing a deep threat. That deep threat could open up the run game a lot more. Watching Singletary last year in that playoff game, he had a couple good runs. You know what I'm saying? So you see that potential. And that's with Josh Allen with, scared in the deer in the headlight look in that game too. I think Singletary can make a big leap this year.
Yeah, I mean, Dawson Knox isn't even that bad of a tight end.
No, but he was raw last year. He's
right,
raw.
but my point is, I think, you look at a team and you say John Brown is the number 1 wide receiver. You kind of, but as a number 2, he's pretty darn good, and that's pretty sexy. And then you got Stephon Diggs. And like you said, that just changes the entire dynamic there. So I think he'll help. I just worry that McDermott is going to give this guy enough of a workload. And not to mention, the offensive line is a lot better than people realize. This is a really good offensive line.
It's a good line. So you're thinking probably what I'm thinking. Probably you'd like to see his carries around 20, but you're probably thinking like 10 to 15 because of the cap.
Yeah, I mean, I could see him with 250 carries. Probably, hopefully. He's not going to hit 300. I think 200 is his cap. He'll probably finish with like 1,100 yards. 1,200
That's
probably
not
as a
bad.
cap. And that's a wide receiver, too, all day.
You mean RB2?
Excuse me, an RB2 all day. I just want him to catch passes so bad.
Just be a wide receiver too, be like McCaffrey.
Yeah, so that's number 22. We'll move on to number 21. A guy that shares my name, DJ, David Johnson. John, I want to throw a name out there at you, and I want you to tell me what you think about this name. Derrick Henry. What do you think about Derrick Henry? We're going to talk a little later about your favorite guy that you've ever owned as a fantasy owner. Derrick Henry's probably not on that list for
What
you.
do I think of Derrick Henry?
Yeah.
I'm very spiteful.
Yeah.
Because when I drafted him, he did nothing.
Yeah.
And then, hey, I drop him because I held on to him too long, and then he explodes. So I'm salty.
So you lost hope in Derrick Henry.
Yes.
And I also think you've lost hope in David Johnson. And he might burn you just like Derrick Henry did.
I hope you're right.
Yes.
I hope you're right, but the part that scares me is the age of him.
Hear me out on this.
Okay.
2019, obviously a really tough year for David Johnson. Suffered a 3.7 yards per carry average, as well as a career low, 47 receptions. That's his career low, though. Think about that, guys. For another career low, 370 yards. Receiving. What's worse is that it was painfully clear that Arizona had given up on their former flame for a new love in the form of Kenyon Drake. Drake burst onto the Cardinals scene with 4.8 yards per carry and 8 touchdowns. It was clear that things just weren't working out between Arizona and Johnson, despite having a hot and heavy past. What do I mean by that? Well, it's simple. I think we all know Johnson's history. He averaged 4.1 yards per carry in his prior 3 healthy seasons as Arizona's running back, as well as scoring 42 touchdowns over 3 seasons and 166 receptions over that span. It's an average of 14 touchdowns of 55 receptions a year. He also happens to be a big pass-catching back at 6'1", 224 pounds, which is basically fantasy football crack at the running back position. For example, Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook. Unlike them, he also happens to be 30 years old. But much as we buried him for the last year's performance, it makes it easy, guys, to forget that Johnson averaged 20.1 PPR points per game last season prior to losing the job to Kenyon Drake, with 3 out of his 6 games over 20 points and only 1 in single digits. This was just last season, at the beginning of last year, guys. So while he lost the job, quote unquote, he didn't necessarily have to. Also taking into consideration that his boom year, he averaged 25.5 points per game, and for his career average, an average of 15.6. 20.1, right in the dead center of that. I don't think he's necessarily declined. I really think there's still fuel in that tank. So, with that being said, let's talk about his new stomping grounds. I want you guys to take a guess at how many, I like to make you guys guess, at how many carries Carlos Hyde had last year in Houston.
205.
John?
140.
245.
Really?
245
1,000
carries.
yards last year, so.
He did. Lamar Jackson. Lamar Miller. Any guesses on him? You were close with your first one.
200.
210. 210 carries for Lamar Jackson. 245 Lamar Miller. 245 for Carlos Hyde. That's 455 carries, guys. Houston as a team finished in the top 10, 9th, in rushing yards per game with 125. Also finished 12th in rushing attempts per game. 10th in rushing first downs per game, 9th in yards per attempt, 11th in rushing play percentage, and 12th in rushing yards percentage. This was with a 21st ranked offensive line. Houston added Roderick Johnson, Ben Cuvale, probably butchered that name, and Charlie Heck in the draft to add depth to the offensive line, and of course Laramie Tunsil. At the same time, Duke Johnson, we're going to talk about receiving, received 62 targets, and DeAndre Hopkins is taking all 150 of his targets to Arizona. DJ will most definitely get a good piece of that pie. David Johnson is going to inherit, guys, a huge workload that, in my view, he got this workload from guys that cannot carry his jock in Lamar Miller, I said his name right that time, and Carlos Hyde. Johnson's stats, I think he's actually primed. If you look at them, when I broke them down, I looked at it and I said, this guy's primed for a big time bounce back season. Let's not forget, he's out to prove something too. There's a lot to like about David Johnson. And I didn't really realize it until I really started digging deep. But you're talking about a guy that was really, really good the first 6 games last year. And I think still has the juice, taking over a gigantic workload in Houston. For a guy that gave up DeAndre Hopkins to get him. So he's going to get that usage. I really think, guys, don't sleep on David Johnson this year. John, have I changed your opinion?
A little bit. The only thing Arizona ranked 22nd in the offensive line last year, so one behind Houston. I guess the question is, do you think it was Arizona's offensive scheme that killed Johnson?
I think they wanted him out. I think it's just like I said. It's like you're dating this girl for a while, and man, was she hot, but she might have packed on a few pounds, as the years go by. She doesn't do the stuff in the, bedroom maybe that she used to for you.
The encouraging part
and now you got this smoking hot chick from Miami You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, all right, this time of you to go, man. And I think that's what happened.
The encouraging part is hearing the numbers Bill O'Brien has run the ball. That's actually eye-opening. It's actually very eye-opening. Now you add a couple pieces to that puzzle
That's
on the
not even
offensive
including
line.
Duke Johnson's rushing attempts, you know.
I still do feel that most of Hopkins' targets are going to go to Cooks. Not all of them, but a good majority of them. But does leave a lot of opportunity for Johnson. I think Johnson...
I think you're easily looking at over 300 touches for Johnson this year, if he's healthy. That's a big question mark.
Let me ask you here. What do you think? What do you value as ADP based on what you've read now? Do you think it's... You know what I'm saying? Because of the drop last
honestly,
year now.
John, I'd have to look up his ADP. I don't have that off the top of my head. It shouldn't take me too long to find that. But while I'm doing that, Tom, where do you sit on David Johnson?
He's just the only guy they have, so they're going to have to feed him the ball. The other Johnson, the Johnson backfield, but Duke doesn't run a lot.
And Duke has never gotten a lead role, even though I feel like he's deserved it, right?
He's just a little third down back, so David's going to be the main rusher on that team if he can stay healthy. He's missed 18 games in 3 years, so.
Yeah, and that I really didn't get into a lot, but it does.
But one was a hand injury, so that's healthy. So that helps.
They were freaky ones too. And none of his injuries were based on like conditioning or anything like that. I can't seem to find him for the life of me. Oh, there he is. He's in the 6th round. Get your stud in round 1. Get your Saquon Barkley in round 1. And then round 6 comes around and you get David Johnson. I think you're in pretty good shape.
That's why I wondered his ADP, because, I mean, his ADP, the last couple of years have been, round 1, round 2?
And obviously not getting the return on that. Yeah, but this year it's 6th round, and you know, if people are sleeping on him, that could drop. I mean, you look at guys underneath him. If Darius Geist starts looking healthy, he might rise above him, you know. If you look at a situation where Nick Chubb gets hurt, Kareem Hunt's going to raise above him, you know, and there's guys like Sony Michel underneath him, and Damian Williams, Tevin Coleman, James White. So he's definitely where the drop-off occurs in the draft. And if he's your RB2, or, I mean, where he's going, potentially your RB3.
He may even go past the ADP.
Forget about it,
He may even go past the ADP, because people like me who had him last year are so burned and salty by him.
Oh, yeah.
That he could be a
For
great...
every one of you, there's a guy like me that's wringing his hands come the 6th or 7th round.
Yeah, but the good thing about doing a podcast like this, we break it down.
But even as a 5th rounder, I'd take that all day. If he's getting 300 touches and he's a 5th round ADP, and I think that's a minimum 300
Yeah, but you even
touches.
said, 46 receptions was his lowest ever?
That's his lowest.
That's what I'm saying. So he's already a bargain.
And like I said, and I don't want to keep repeating stuff, but 20 points a game the first 6 games last year. When did that happen? Because none of us remember it.
I don't even remember it.
Right, and you had him on your team.
All I remember was going, why is he not playing? Remember that one game he's going to start? He had one carry, he came out. I was just like, I'm done.
Well, you don't have to be. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And I really like what David Johnson brings to the table on an offense that obviously is going to run the ball a lot. I don't like what the next guy brings to the table. And I have really dug deep to find the most inspirational sound effect / music that I can for this guy.
I already know who it is.
This guy, I would take David Johnson over this guy all day long. And twice on Sunday, as they say. And that guy is Chris Carson. This is officially the new sound effect for Chris Carson. Oh.
He's not down the drain yet.
No, that nugget is still floating there.
Wow.
Are we good? Or is he? Oh, no. All right. There goes Chris Carson down the drain. And I'm going to do the proverbial flushing of Chris Carson right here, right now. Which isn't the first time, right, John?
No, this is going to be like the 4th or 5th.
So we've talked about the fact that Chris Carson has had as many rushing touchdowns as he did fumbles last season. That's the truth. We've talked about the fact that his fumbling was such an issue that he almost got benched by Pete Carroll, a man who looks at Chris Carson as a son. We know that his career high as a pass catcher is 37 and only 24 in his other year as a starter. We know that while his 4.4 yards per carry is solid, he only topped 100 yards in 6 of his 16 games in 2019. We know that Rashard Penny, once again, beat Chris Carson out in the efficiency category with an astounding 5.7 yards per carry and an even more impressive 10.3 yards per catch. compared to Carson's aforementioned 4.4 yards per carry and paltry 7.1 yards per catch. We know that Penny is likely to start on PUP, but we also know that Travis Homer outperformed Carson as well with 6.3 yards per carry. Homer also had more carries than Carson in the season finale, and Penny outtouched Carson in week 14 and basically split the workload with him in week 15. What we all know is that Chris Carson is the luckiest running back on the planet. Everything seems to go his way, but at the end of the day, he's a guy with 53rd percentile 40 speed, 60th percentile speed score, and a lowly 14th percentile agility score. We know he has a 7th ranked snap share and a 10th ranked opportunity share, which is huge. But it can't be sustained by his 30th ranked yards per touch, 24th ranked true yards per carry, 47th ranked production premium, and 86th ranked fantasy points per opportunity. Think about that stat, guys. Especially considering Carson finished 32nd in average defenders in the box with 6.2, 32nd in a stacked front carry rate, which is at 16.5%, and 3rd ranked in team runs per play. It just doesn't jive. His efficiency does not match his usage. What I know is that Chris Carson is nothing but smoke and mirrors and window dressing, and his time is running out. Whether it be Rashad Penny, Travis Homer, or 4th-round rookie DJ Dallas, someone is going to shatter that mirror, and Seattle will be a better team because of it, and we will have a better fantasy running back option because of it. I only have one last thing I need to do in order to tell you guys how I feel about Rashad Penny. And I'm going to do it one more time. You guys ready for this? You ready? Rashad, go away.
Chris Carson, not Rashad Penny.
I mean, Chris Carson. Rashad, come back. Chris Carson, go away. I love Rashad Penny, by the way. That's what I think of Chris Carson. And it's never going to change. Sorry, Jake. It's never going to change. I know what the true Chris Carson is. And just because to quote Devontae Parker, if Rashad Penny got 300 carries a game, imagine what would happen.
The thing on Carson is Pete Carroll loves him. That's it. He likes that big burly back to give you those 3 to 4 yards at a time. He did fumble 7 times, but he did get 1,230 yards.
He did. But my point is, the points over replacement, I guess you would call it. Would Rashad Penny get significantly more than that? I think so. And it's a damn shame that guy can't stay healthy. But let's be honest, Chris Carson can't either. I didn't even touch on that.
He fractured his hip in week 16, so.
Yeah, he's hurt every single year.
And I haven't heard anything about the hip since. I will give you some credit. You actually, you only did it this time, not the other times, but you actually gave him some positives in there. Which
his
you've
usage.
Never done.
His
yeah,
usage.
No.
And think, need I remind you, and I want you guys to think about this stat the most. He finished 86th in fantasy points per opportunity. 86 amongst running backs. Not in the league, amongst running backs. What does that tell you? There's a lot of food left on the table that Chris Carson is not eating. And somebody else could. I truly believe that.
The other part of it is too, I don't Seattle, you can tell is concerned. You don't go out and draft a back just for fun.
Granted, a 4th-round back, and DJ Dallas is 5'10", 217, so he's not huge, but
he's not small.
He's definitely
either,
got some size, yeah.
But them also signing Lynch last year. I mean, I knew he was,
And there's talks of bringing him back again.
So that tells you that their plan for the future for Carson is not really there, because if it was, most teams would not talk about a Lynch or, drafting Dallas and all this. So the thing is, I think he's going to be on a shorter leash this year than he has been in the years past. And if he doesn't show it, then he will be replaced. The question is going to be who? Who steps up? Penny, Homer, Dallas? I guess wait and see and find out.
Yeah, and you know what? I hope that when I flush that this year on Chris Carson, that you guys listen, and I hope that little nugget doesn't come back up through the pipe and still kind of float there. Because that's what Chris Carson has done, and it drives me crazy. I want to flush that little nugget of turds for good on Chris Carson.
Imagine keeping
Rest in peace, Owen Hart.
Pete
Carroll too. Yeah.
Imagine keeping him as a keeper.
Too unsexy. You know who's sexy? Jonathan Taylor finished at number 19 in our rankings. Tom, you kind of broke down Jonathan Taylor. What did you come up with?
He's a 2-time Doak Walker winner in college. Only 2 other running backs have ever done that.
Wow. Nice.
And it was Darren McFadden and Ricky Williams.
And they were excellent college running backs, and not bad in the pros either.
He had 2,000-yard running games in college, back to back. He had a lot of attempts in college. He goes to a team that's ranked in the top 3 of offensive line.
Your boy, John. Who's your boy on the offensive line in Indy? Your guy.
Oh, Quentin Nelson.
Yeah, you love that guy. You keep forgetting his name, though. Anyway, continue, Tom.
He does have competition with Marlon Mack, Naheem Hines. But come said and done, he's going to take over, but probably not till later on in the season. So if you draft him early, you're not going to get what you expect out of Jonathan Taylor.
I agree with that. I think he's going to... I mean, it may take 3 weeks. It could take 6 weeks. You don't know. What do you think, John?
I think Taylor's going to be eased into it. They're going to give Mack the opportunity. Yes, they did not re-sign Mack, but Mack's been the lead back the last few years. The problem with Mack, though, he's another back that cannot stay healthy for 16 games.
And I think the drafting of Jonathan Taylor just shows that they don't trust him
Taylor,
anymore.
on paper, has the durability, especially with the amount of carries he has, and I think that's what Indy sees. Indy also sees what I saw. Other than his first year in college, he only ran for 1,967 rushing yards. Just missed that 2,000. He almost had 3 seasons at 2,000 yards. Yes, he had a great line there. But the question is, for how big he is, he runs very fast, very hard. I was very surprised that this draft he did not go in the first round for his traits and characteristics. But I think it was a different draft than most expected.
Yeah, I think it was.
I honestly think Taylor will have the job by week 4. I think earlier than expected.
I think, yes, if there's an injury to Marlon Mack, but I kind of dug into Marlon Mack a little bit. He's better than we think. The guy finished 3rd in breakaway runs, 15th in evaded tackles, 12th in breakaway run rate. He finished 11th in juke rate. And he's on a run-based offense, 5th in team run plays per game, 9th in carries, 14th in red zone touches, and 10th, of course, in rushing yards. There's a lot to like about Marlon Mack, but he just can't stay healthy. And I think with the same opportunities, Jonathan Taylor would outperform him across the board in all likelihood.
The other problem with Mack, though, is he's not a pass catching back.
He doesn't,
at all.
And he doesn't. I guess he doesn't need to be because Hines is there.
Good
Hines
point.
is gonna, and that's the other thing. Tom, you mentioned Hines. He's gonna limit the upside of Jonathan Taylor because he's gonna be the primary pass catcher. This isn't a situation like a guy that I'm gonna talk about, the Fresh Prince, where he's got the opportunity to get the running and passing work in the offense. Jonathan Taylor's not going to get a lot of that passing work, right,
He
Tom?
only got 26 receptions last year as a senior, 40 in 3 years.
And that was his highest, I think.
His
Yeah,
highest.
it was his
He had
highest.
8 and 8 the 2 years
Hilaire had
before.
more than that in his senior year.
I love Jonathan Taylor. He's on an offense that I think is going to run a lot. But he's not Clyde Edwards-Helaire because he's not going to get the potential workload. All right, John, I think it's your first guy that you broke down.
Sweet. Who do I got?
18th, Melvin Gordon.
Melvin Gordon. Okay, so we're going to start with the offensive line here. Denver's offensive line last year, 25th in the pass, but 11th in the run. So here's the thing. They added 2 key guys this year, Graham Glasgow at guard and Lloyd Cushenberry at
The
center. The third. And then Netane Muti.
Squire
also
Lloyd.
at guard.
What is it? Lloyd Cushenberry? Squire Lloyd
Cushenberry.
It's one of the Blue Bloods.
Glasgow, Graham, guarded at 70 for his position, which is really good.
Yeah.
He's one of the better linemen of right guards. He actually took over for Ron Larry, who was graded at 58, which is not a good grade for an offensive lineman. They did lose McGovern at center, but Cushenberry being there. The third. He's a lot quicker on his feet, but needs a little bit of help in pass protection. But the good thing here is they did address the offensive line. And I think it's more for the passing than the running, but being ranked 11th in the offensive line is actually really good for Melvin Gordon, in my opinion. They can only improve from here. As for Melvin Gordon last year, and this was actually surprising to see the Melvin Gordon stats. He finished 10th overall for total TDs with 9. He finished as the RB21, which was a little more surprising than I thought because he didn't start playing until week 5. So how many fantasy points do you think he averaged last year only playing 12 games?
I'm going to guess 11.6.
Nope.
Oh, no, that's standard, right?
Yes.
Hold on. I can guess when I change it to PPR. And I'm going to guess that it was 15.1.
15.1, which was
solid.
Yeah, pretty solid. He actually, in week 8, he kind of got his groove back. Week 9, he definitely got his groove back. After that, he only had, other than his first 3 weeks, which could be conditioning with his holdout and everything, he only had 4 single-digit weeks out of all those weeks.
Yeah.
But he exploded for 5 20-point weeks and actually just missed the 6th one against Jacksonville in week 14. Melvin Gordon, obviously, I think that holdout last year hurt him, but for a shortened season, he actually did pretty well. I mean, he finished 10th in total TDs. He finished, it's hard to, efficiency-wise and opportunity weren't as high because he missed a lot, but considering Dominator rating was number 9 for only playing 12 games at 27.6.
Can I just say that I love Melvin Gordon this year? Is that okay? Because, 3.8 yards per carry last year. Well, that's what he does every year. 3.5 in 2015, 3.9 in 2016, 3.9 in 2017, skyrocketed to 2018's 5.1, then back down to earth at 3.8. So this is Melvin Gordon. He's tough to watch as a fantasy owner, but every time you look at the fantasy box score, the points are there. He has 8 to 10 touchdowns every single year. He's got a nose for the end zone. He's a pass catcher who's had he's got touchdowns every single year except for his rookie year. There's a lot to like about Gordon, and it's not like, people think he's old. He's 27, so he's still in his prime.
It's kind of like a myth. The other part of it is playing 12 games where you miss those games. He still finished 8th in goal line carries with 11, which is really good. So he probably would have been easily top 3 if he played all 16 games.
Right.
And Denver has talked about running the ball more, being more efficient with the run. They didn't go out and get Melvin Gordon just to sit there.
No.
They want a dominating runner. Elway is set. I have a feeling this kid's going to carry the ball more than we think he is.
And it's, Philip Lindsay caps his upside. Danny Woodhead didn't. Austin Eckler didn't.
I was just going to say.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, these guys didn't cap his upside.
He dealt with Eckler last year, and he averaged 15.9 in PPR. So
right. I love Gordon this
Lindsay
year.
is not Eckler. So I don't see he's going to be a little capped, but not like people think. I hope people think he's capped, because if they're sleeping on him, I'm ready to draft him.
In Locke, if he struggles, Tom, I know you don't think he will. If he struggles, he's going to check down, right? And that's going to be Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon, by the way, guys, is a significantly better pass catcher than Philip Lindsay is. He caught more passes than Lindsay last year, and he only started in 11 games.
And the other difference in this too is you got to remember I almost said San Diego, but LA Chargers last year were number 13 in offensive line, so a little bit better of an offensive line he's going to now, and that's not including the additions they got at the offensive line. So they should be easily top 10 for running.
Tom, jump in here.
He's 1,000-yard back at most.
Yeah.
Lindsay is still
At most,
there,
huh?
At most.
Really?
The touchdowns, he might get double digits, but Lindsay will take some of the carries away. Royce Freeman's still on the team.
He's just not a fit, though. He just doesn't fit that
The
offense.
Rolls Royce has been parked.
It's in the.
He's
in
still
the
got the
garage.
engine revving a little bit, but
Yeah, and again, talk about being parked in the garage. Lindsay's not just going to get parked in the garage, but I think you're gonna see a much better year from Gordon than people expect, and I think he is going to outcarry Lindsay. I really do. He's a better talent than Lindsay, and he's only 2 years older than him too. But you think Lindsay's going to be a bigger factor, Tom?
I just think they signed him just to bone the Chargers.
You think so?
Elway just did about a
Well, that's
spike.
true too. Divisional opponent. That's a good theory to look at as well.
That could be, but we'll have to wait and see. John, you got the next guy on the list as well. Your buddy, a guy that you had for years, John, Le'Veon Bell.
I'm still drooling. Can you look up something for me? I didn't get a chance to look up.
Are you drooling about Gordon? Or are you now drooling over?
No, Bell, if I think his ADP. Can you pull up his ADP for me?
Sure,
I'm
go ahead.
curious. So let's talk about Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell, fantastic. Not last year. I will not bring that up. Last year, he was not good. Last year, let me go over his stats.
Bell's ADP is probably higher than you want it to be. He's a third round ADP.
Really?
306. Yeah.
Okay, that's higher than I thought. So last year, Le'Veon Bell, 15 games, 245 attempts for 789 yards, 3.2 average, 3 touchdowns, but still 66 receptions on 78 targets for 461 yards and 1 TD. The passing is still there reception-wise, like receiving back-wise. He still managed to average 14.3 fantasy points per game, his lowest in his career. Okay?
Yep.
Worst rushing other than his 2015 year, which he only played 6 games. He played 15 here. The thing I like about Le'Veon Bell this year that I think people will be sleeping on, yes, they were ranked 30th in passing line and ranked second to last in the run. Now they went and chopped, and they actually addressed the offensive line. They added Mekhi Becton from the draft. They added Connor McGovern. Mekhi Becton, sorry. Connor McGovern.
That's for you,
they also
Kuchar.
added Greg Van Roten. They had Cameron Clark, who could play guard or tackle, and also George Fant. So they had 5 offensive linemen they went and got. Are these guys the greatest? No. But it's an improvement.
It can't be worse.
What's the worst thing? They go from 31 to 25th.
Only Miami was worse than them last year in offensive line rankings, according to Football Outsiders. It was bad.
Okay. So now the departure of Robbie Anderson. Targets are going to be there. I think he's going to see an upscale in targets this year. He's going to be used more as he should be, I think. Gaze scares me. He does scare me. But
Denzel Mims should scare you too.
Mims does, but I still think
Don't forget Rashad Perriman is in town as well.
Perryman will take some, but I still think they're going to rely on Le'Veon Bell. They didn't sit here and pay him the money to just sit there and not get the carries.
Right.
He's not even that old. Like people make him out to be. He's
30.
28.
He's 28.
28.
Does he seem 28?
No.
Football years.
My God, dude.
So that's the thing. He's
He's
still
only a year older than Gordon is. Wow, I didn't know that.
So Le'Veon Bell, I think, has a lot of inspiring things going for him.
Maybe I better double check David Johnson's age. Maybe he's not 30.
But so now I start going in weighted opportunities. He was number 4, number 7 in targets, number 11 in carries, number 7 in opportunity share. This is the Jets offensive line we're talking about. And this is his opportunity. Snap share number 4, receiving yards number 9 at 461. There is some things I won't read, like total touchdowns number 42.
David Johnson's 28 years old.
So it starts eye opening. Yeah, so the age thing
I
starts.
had him at 30. I don't know what happened.
He'll be 29 by the season starts.
He's 28.4 years old, according to Player Profiler.
Le'Veon Bell was number 6 in catch rate at 84.
I like Johnson even more now, but continue.
Yeah. Le'Veon Bell was number 6 at catch rate. So, yeah, there's a lot of negatives to what Le'Veon Bell had last year, being on a horrible, horrible offensive line. But do you see Le'Veon Bell having 2 horrible career low seasons? I don't. I think the additions are going to help. I think that I'm not saying he's ever going to get back to the caliber player he was, but definitely I think people are not going to, you said his ADP was about 3rd round.
Yeah.
I think he's going to go later. And I think if he goes any later than the 4th, I'm interested in taking him.
And his catch rate was, he finished 6th in catch rate too, John. So I don't know if you mentioned that.
Yes.
But, that's going to help too. But he didn't finish well in any other category from an efficiency standpoint. But some encouraging stuff. If you look at his stack front carry rate, that was 19th overall. If that improves, that could be great for him. He finished 22nd in average defenders in the box. So that actually wasn't bad for him. He does that pitter-patter thing and waits for his spot. He's got great vision, but he doesn't have time to have great vision.
He doesn't have the line like he did in Pittsburgh.
And I don't think he's going to this year. I'd love to see Le'Veon Bell come back to form. But even with all of that being said, even with Le'Veon Bell having by far his worst season, he still provided a pretty good fantasy year for you last year.
That's the part people don't see, because you think Jets, you think worst offensive line. He only had 2 single-digit fantasy games.
Yeah, dude.
That's it.
I mean,
all the rest were double digits.
So efficiency, yes, trash. And even points per game was 14.3 in PPR, which is solid, but that's down from 22.8 in 2017 and 2016. He had 26.4. In 2015, 18.5. In 2014, 23.2. In 2013, 16.7. So yes, a career low. But if I said that David Montgomery was the most disadvantaged running back in the league, Le'Veon Bell might have something to say about that. So let's see if that improves. Tom, you've traditionally been a Bell guy.
1,200 yards combined, receiving and rushing last year on a horrible team.
Yeah.
66 reception, 5 touchdowns. If he's going to get better next year.
If that's his worst at only 28 years old, then yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
This is another guy that, just like David Johnson, I look at these guys in a similar fashion. People are going to sleep on these guys. David Johnson's a 6th round ADP, guys. You look at Bell, yeah, he's a 3rd round now, but people are going to get jazzed up about the Jonathan Taylor. You know, the guys are going to sink his ADP lower, I think.
People are going to look at these rookies, draft them ahead of guys like this. Who I mean, yes, Le'Veon Bell, worst season ever for his career other than the years he got injured. But you're talking about a guy that has a career 20.3 fantasy points per game. I know he's not in Pittsburgh anymore, but when a guy only has 2 single-digit games, it's only going to get better.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Hey guys, before we get on to the next guy on our list, I got some late breaking news, John, that I want to tell the world here. It has something to do with Carlos Hyde, a guy that we talked about, got a ton of touches over there in Houston last year. NFL Network's Mike Silver reports that the Seahawks have had conversations with free agent running back Carlos Hyde. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Just add to my write-up there on Chris Carson.
Wow, they're really going shopping this year, aren't they?
I know. It's almost like their starting running back is trash. I mean, I don't know if that's confirmed or not.
Yeah, but Hyde would have hurt Penny too, I think.
Well, let's move on to our next guy to feel a little bit better about all of this. The next guy on our list, he will be the first overall pick in our keeper league. I can confirm this. Is the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. There we go. We had a little skip there. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, handpicked by God himself, and I will prove that with what I've got for you here today, guys, on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm loving this guy more and more. We talked about him, John. You and I, John, talked about this guy in like January, February. We were on this guy already, and we said every single time, it's almost like we said, what if he goes to Kansas City? Lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. Looking at Edwards' numbers at LSU, there's a lot to like. 5.7 yards per carry as a starter. 6.6 in 2019, gaining 1,414 yards rushing. 17 total touchdowns as a senior to add to 55 receptions for 453 yards at 8.2 yards a catch, a total of 1,867 yards from scrimmage, guys. From a film perspective, there's a lot to like as well. Great ball security, 438 touches, guys, and just 1 fumble to show for it. Think about that. Eat your heart out, Chris Carson, by the way. This guy,
it doesn't
I
stop.
just can't. I can't help myself. Where's Jake when I need him? Makes defenders miss even when they're right on top of him. He cuts and goes without even stopping. Runs crisp routes. Yak is automatic with Helaire. Squares his shoulders and falls forward when he's finishing. Spin moves, jump cuts, double cuts. He just makes guys miss. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has the ability to get yardage in short yardage or goal line situations. What is not to like? So let's ask GM Brett Veach what's not to like. During the scouting process with Mahomes, this is actually a conversation between Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Veach. Veach made, actually, I'll get onto that next. Veach made the bold statement in the scouting process. He's the best player I've ever seen. The best player I've ever seen in the scouting process. How about head coach Andy Reid? After Veach went over Edwards-Helaire's film himself, he told Reid that he'd see Brian Westbrook when turning on the tape. Reid watched his response to Veach. He's better than Brian. How about high praise? That's about as high praise as you're going to get. How about quarterback Pat Mahomes? Here's the conversation. General manager Brett Veach sent a text to Patrick Mahomes. Head coach Andy Reid was also in the group chat. Veach asked the Super Bowl MVP, hey, if you had had to name a skill player, go ahead in terms of who he would like to have. Veach and Reid were having some fun at the same time, have always been enamored with Mahomes' instincts, especially with other players. They were curious who he'd be interested in. Within a few seconds, Mahomes responded. Their phones lit up. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, handpicked by God himself in the undeniable Kavorka of Pat Mahomes. How about running back coach Deland McCullough? I'm looking forward to working with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, McCullough said, a guy who fits what we need on and off the field. He has personality, leadership, productivity, and the ability to learn. We're just going to keep building on it and take it to the next level. I really liked his leadership abilities also. McCullough continued, he's somebody that's very strong-willed, meaning he'll enforce his will on you just with the way he prepares, his attitude towards the game. Don't worry about the Fresh Prince, guys. Damian Williams is going to lose his job to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It's only a matter of when. It's not a matter of if. Get your popcorn ready, because this first-round pick doesn't seem to just be the new starter for Kansas City. He appears to be the chosen one. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air could end up being the favorite target of the undeniable Kavorka Pat Mahomes. I know that's high praise. I know he's a rookie. I know he might have to wait. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I think this guy's going to be ready right out of the gate. Tom, what do you think of Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
He fits the system perfectly. The only problem is they're too good. They have too many weapons. That might be his downfall. They can score way too quick with Hill and Hardman and Kelsey. His touches might not be as good as you want to see him out there.
But if you get Kareem, even 75% of what Kareem Hunt gave you the year before, I think you're really happy with that.
Or if Hill or Kelsey get him to 5, he could punch in double-digit touchdowns rushing.
Yeah, what have we said all along, especially you and I, John? I want the lead back in Kansas City. And now here it is, and he's a guy that Mahomes loves, Andy Reid loves, the GM loves, Bieniemy loves, the running back coach loves, everybody.
First
Look
of
what
all,
Bieniemy just said about him.
Yeah.
And it jives with what the running backs coach said, too.
First, to be compared to Brian Westbrook is...
He's better than
that's
Brian.
That's what I'm saying. He's being compared still.
This is an intimate conversation between a GM and a coach. He's better than Brian.
Okay, so
Unreal.
and look how good Westbrook's career was.
It was great.
Yeah. So now he's going to a team is probably one of the highest powered offenses in the league. Lots of opportunity. Yes, there's other opportunity people, but as a running back, you can be set up so much more. Look at the year, I'm trying to think of his name, LeGarrette Blount.
Yep.
He lived off touchdowns that one
really
year for the
did
Pats.
in New England.
And this could be Hilaire's first year, and he could see just rushing touchdowns alone.
One of Tom's all-time favorite players, by the way.
Oh,
I think he literally just threw up in his mouth. But yeah, no, and I agree, Tom, with what you said. There's only one ball, right? But the good thing is about Helaire, he's going to run the ball and he's going to catch the ball, and I think he's going to have plenty of a workload. And he can break a big play. He makes guys miss, and that's what you look for in fantasy football. It's great that Corey Davis is a stud athlete. I'd rather have a guy like this that just makes guys miss and gains yards after the catch. It's automatic. Yards after the catch with this kid is automatic. So he doesn't even need a ton of touches. I see a minimum 200 touches with the upside of 350, honestly. And I'm not kidding there. It's a big range. But the sky is the limit for this kid. I really believe that.
Williams almost lost a job last year multiple times. Injuries.
And he can't stay healthy. It's another Marlon Mack.
Injuries hurt him, but injuries also helped him too. You know what I'm saying? Williams lit it up in the playoffs, but that's the only time he super lit it up.
Right.
They want to improve at this position. They drafted Helaire. I think Helaire has so much upside. The question's going to be when and if. I think he'll start off, they'll ease him in, but I think he's going to take over the backfield faster than people think. I just see Kareem Hunt all over again with more upside.
I really do too. And that's what Hunt did. He did. He ran the ball and he caught the ball and he got a bunch of touchdowns and you were loving every minute of it.
But watching Hunt, some of his moves, his jukes were
real quick. That just came to my mind on Hunt too. He also was a rookie that took over for the lead back that got hurt. I don't even think it's going to take that. So Tom, looking at Helaire, would you take him over Gurley? Would you take him over Fournette? Would you take him over Sanders? Guys that we do have ranked ahead of him.
I don't know. It's just Hardman and Hill are just one play. They can go 80 yards and off the field.
And now you're on the bench.
You're on the bench.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you.
I see 1,300 yards combined and 8 to 10 touchdowns.
And I'm pumped with that too. Yeah. Still as a rookie and as an RB2, which is basically where he's going. But he's climbing up, guys. There's leagues. I'll look at what his ADP is, John. But there's leagues where he's going in the early second round. I mean, would you reach for him that far?
Matters what type of league. A redraft, I'd be a little scared. But Dynasty, I definitely would take him in the first or second.
Let's see where I've got him now, guys. And sorry, this might take me a second. Sorry, I don't have it right away, but I'll look that up. John, why don't you get us started on the next guy on the list? Number 15, a guy that used to be number 1 not too long ago, overall, not just with running backs, Todd Gurley.
Wow.
Brand new shiny toy for the Atlanta Falcons. How much are they going to use that toy?
That's going to be the interesting part. They use Devontae Freeman quite a bit here, but I think it's the age difference. Gurley does fit that kind of like Freeman role, I think. He can catch, and we know what he can do. The concerning part with Gurley is his knee. We don't know what his injury is. Is it arthritic? Is it... We don't know a lot about his injury. So I don't know if that's something the Rams knew, but they pretty much were... You saw a dive in his stats last year, I think.
So let me just interject here. So we just talked about 3 guys that are apparently eternally 28 years old, and David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, and Melvin Gordon is 27. Guess how old Todd Gurley is?
26.
25.
25.8, so nearly 26. Yeah. Amazing. So he's got youth on his side.
Yes. So last year, Todd Gurley had 223 attempts, 857 yards. His second worst season at 3.8 average, but he still had 12 TDs. He had double-digit TDs. I think a lot of people forgot that because they saw how bad of a season he had. He had 40, but they went by his, his MVP year. 49 targets, 207 yards receiving on 31 receptions and 2 TDs. So he had a total of 14 touchdowns last year in a somewhat subpar year for him. But he averaged 14.6 points per game in PPR. But if that's his second worst season, his average, if you combine his other 3 good seasons, he averaged about 4.7, 4.8 for average yards per rush. So these 2 subpar seasons, one was 3.2 average, last year was 3.8. The guy has still managed to put double-digit touchdowns up every year other than 2016 where he only had 6. Now he goes to an Atlanta offense, which is known for throwing the ball quite a bit, but they still run. But with his pass catching ability, I can see easily Gurley getting another double-digit touchdown season, especially here. Teams are going to double-team Julio like they always do. If not, it's going to be either Ridley or Gurley burning them here. I like Gurley in Atlanta.
Dude, in the games that he got 15 or more carries, and let's not forget, this guy was a 20, 25 touch a game guy. 15 or more carries, he got 15.7 PPR points. Amazingly, he had 5 attempts in one game and got 26, but we'll skip that. 15 carries against Seattle, 18.7 points. He had 18 carries in week 7 against Atlanta, only 12 there. But that's the outlier, really, guys. Week 11 against Chicago, 20.3 points on 25 carries. Week 13 against Arizona, 19 attempts, 18.5 points. Week 14 against Seattle, 23 attempts, 21.3 points. Week 15 against San Francisco, 15 attempts, 16.8 points. And one other kind of an outlier, he had 20 attempps. Week 17 and 10.9 points. But he also had games where he only had 11 carries in week 15, 20.8 points. So when they're using him in his workhorse load, he's giving you workhorse output. But it just seemed like they were nervous to do that, especially the first half of the season. In the second half, they're like, F it, we might as well use him. And he provided you a good fantasy output.
Yeah, I mean, opportunity-wise, he was number 6 in snap share, number 9 in opportunity share, number 3 in red zone touches, number 5 in total TDs, number 1 in drops, though. But that can be fixed. It's something that's easily fixed. The only concerning part that I saw...
That's among running backs, though, and it's drops with a running back. I mean, you're catching a screen pass straight across where, a linebacker's meeting you right at the point of contact. You know what I mean? The point of the catch point. So
overall, Gurley, the only 2 things that scare me about Gurley is, 1, we don't know the extent of his injury other than him. Is it going to come back to haunt him, or does it not even affect him at all? He plays right through it.
Didn't affect him down the stretch.
The other part is looking at Devontae Freeman last year. He never had a game of more than 20 touches. Does he not see the opportunity in Atlanta as it relates to rushing? But I think he'll be involved in the passing game to make up for it.
I'm going to tell you something right now, dude. Devonta Freeman hasn't been Devonta Freeman for 2 years. And if you're looking at, his target count was 70 targets last year. I mean, at his most, it was 97. If you're giving Todd Gurley 70 targets, he's going to give you more than 410 yards. He did have 4 touchdowns, too, did Freeman on those 70 targets. So if you're getting 70 targets and even 200 carries from Todd Gurley, that's going to be a pretty darn good year. You know what I mean?
No, I think if
I might have misspoken, said Gordon before, by the way. I don't know.
But looking at Freeman's numbers from 2017, 2018, he was hurt. He played 2 games. But look at 2017, 2019, he only had 3 games over 20 attempts, and the highest was 24. That's the only thing that scares me about him going to Atlanta, is that he going to get that running opportunity. But like you said, it's a matter of what he does with it. If he has 18 rushes but has 2 TDs, who cares if he's getting 25 touches?
I like Todd Gurley this year. I'm excited. I think Atlanta utilizes their pass-catching running backs. And let's not forget, Tom, Devonta Freeman's year, that season where he was the number 1 running back overall, Dirk Cutter was the offensive coordinator. Guess who's back? Turd Cutter, as we like to call him.
What
do you think of that?
If he's healthy, that's the big if. He's a top 10 running back again this year. He's got Matt Ryan, not Jared Goff.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely.
That helps a lot. He's comfortable with the running backs. Goal line, he's going to be a beast for them.
So his target quality is going to be better, with Matt Ryan. And I think he's going to get targeted more. I think it's going to be right along the lines of, those years where he's getting 80 targets. And if he gets 70, I'm happy with that. That year he finished as an RB1. He only had, I don't say only, but he only had 87 targets. So it's not like he was getting Christian McCaffrey level 120 targets. You know what I mean?
The other great thing is you're one of the best wide receivers in the game playing here. That should help Gurley a lot, too, as well. Plus Calvin Ridley, too. These 2 receivers should definitely open up things for him, with Hurst as well.
And Hayden Hurst is there, too. And Russell Gage ain't no slouch either. You
Nope.
know what I mean? I really like this offense. Turd Cutter's had a lot of experience. I literally just call him Turd Cutter.
It's easier. It's just easier.
Had a lot of experience with this team and success with this team. And Matt Ryan. So I think it's going to be Matt Ryan. Unfortunately, seems to be dealing with a different offensive coordinator every year, Tom. But I think Turd Cutter is going to fit right in there, and it's easy for Matt Ryan to jump right back in too. And what's Todd Gurley got to learn? Run that way, and I'll throw it to you.
That's the best thing with running back. You
Right.
don't have to learn much. Just
He'll slide
straight
right in there. Yeah, we all like Todd Gurley. It sounds like. All right, next up, John. What do you got on Leonard Fournette?
Oh, Leonard Fournette. So Jaguars' offensive line ranking last year was 16th ranked 16th in the pass, 27th in the run. Yes, I repeat, 27th in the run. Awful. The good thing, though, about Leonard Fournette last year was that he had played 15 games, 265 attempts, 1,152 yards, a 4.3 average, career high.
I feel like everybody last year had 4.3, 4.4 average.
A career low, though, in touchdowns with 3. And then 76 receptions, 100 targets, both career highs, and a career high in receiving yards of 522, but 0 touchdowns to show for it, and only 1 fumble.
Yeah, dude, it was frustrating to own Leonard Fournette last year. But it was gratifying, too, because he did give you the numbers.
He was the RB7 last year. Can you imagine if he had the touchdown upside? He averaged 16.7 fantasy points per game in Doug Marone's offense.
1 single-digit performance in PPR.
Yes.
What I didn't like, though, is the touchdowns, like you said, John. I mean, and I don't know what else you've got on him, but the one thing I could say as an owner of Leonard Fournette last year, again, I wasn't disappointed with his fantasy points. I was disappointed with what he didn't get for fantasy points because of touchdowns, and it seemed like they were channeling 2016 Aaron Rodgers every time they got to the goal.
So, opportunity-wise, his numbers are very good. Number 2 in snap share, number 2 in opportunity share, number 4 in targets, number 7 in carries, number 2 in weighted opportunities, number 4 in red zone touches. This is the bad part. He was number 4 in red zone touches, but had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He had 54 red zone touches,
Yeah.
and he shows 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So at some point, is it the line or is it him or both?
Yeah, and
I think it's both.
And they did, toward the second half of the year, just stop running on the goal line. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, he was
now red zone touches and goal line touches are 2 different things, so that should be noted. I'm actually gonna go ahead, John. Unless you have.
He was also number 6 in rush yards, number 5 in receiving yards, number 5 in receptions, number 50 in total TDs. Like I said, not something great. Number 9 in fantasy points per game. Number 9 in big hits. Number 19 in evaded tackles, which ain't horrible. Number 8 in breakaway runs. He had a good season, but it could have been so much better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the thing with Fournette, like his speed as he gets going, he's like a locomotive.
He's 241 pounds.
He's like a locomotive. He starts slow, but once he gets going, dude, like he is hard to stop, and he gets faster and faster as he goes. So that's I like that a lot about him. I'm actually trying to look up his goal line carries. I don't see
the only thing that scares me about Fournette is the trade talks. This is where I'm skeptical in this year. They did not improve the offensive line. They didn't do anything to address the offensive line. The other part of it, they went and picked up Chris Thompson. So could Fournette lose receptions to Chris Thompson now, a pass catching back? You still have Armstead there. They tried to shop Fournette, so it doesn't sound good for Fournette from a fantasy perspective when your team's trying to trade you right before the draft. So I don't know how much longer Mr. Fournette has left in Jacksonville.
Could get ugly, Tom.
They're going to keep him for the year. He's going to be the workhorse. He just runs too high. If you watch him on the field, he just stands up. That's why he gets tackled so easily. He doesn't get low. That's his 76 receptions, 522 yards. He should at least have 700-800 yards there, but he just runs too big.
Maybe that's why he gets stuffed so much at the goal line, too.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I cannot find his goal line carries, but I'm telling you, I really think there's a big difference between red zone carries and goal line carries. And I feel like he didn't get a ton of goal line carries, but I'll continue to try to look it up.
Oh, goal line carries, I found it.
Yeah, oh, great.
7.
7 total?
7 total, number 18. You get a point and a half.
So that's
per
not
game.
great, dude.
No.
Yeah, that's finishing 18th, you know.
So they get in the red zone.
An RB1, almost a top 5 RB. He might have finished, I think he finished 6th.
He finished seventh.
Seventh
Overall.
He finished 7th, and he's not even in the teen. He's barely in the teens for goal line carries. So they did definitely back off on that at some point, and it really affected him. He could have had a lot of more touchdowns than he got. Hopefully they don't do that this year, but who knows with Marone.
If he would have got, let's say he got 10 touchdowns, he might have finished, well, no, he wouldn't have finished RB1. He probably would have finished RB2 or RB3 last year.
Yeah. All right, Tom, you're taking us home with number 13, Miles Sanders, a guy I love a lot.
Me too. He was Saquon Barkley's backup for 2 years in college. He only had 56 touches his first 2 years in college. Went up to 220 touches his senior year for 1,274 yards. As a rookie last year, starting the season off at 818 yards and 3 touchdowns rushing, 50 receptions for 509 yards and 3 touchdowns. The offensive line of Philadelphia was ranked number 1 last year, the overall ranking, with all 5 starters graded in the top 10. He's got Boston Scott and Corey Clement as his backups. Those numbers are just going to...
Boston Scott and Corey Clement are journeyman backup running backs. And I know Scott made some waves last year.
Against the Giants, but that doesn't count.
Exactly.
I feel like I'm on SpongeBob. Boston Scott and Corey Clement.
What? I don't even know what that means. But talk about Miles Sanders, John.
Miles Sanders is watching the kid last year. I mean, he's a kid. He was, 21? Going on 22?
Yeah.
Great as a rookie. Showed lots of potential upside. Only thing I capped him at first was sharing the backfield with Jordan Howard for most of the year. But as the season went on, we saw what Sanders was made of in those limited opportunities. And as he got more opportunities, he shined. So now that he is, I think he's going to be the workhorse back there. I'd say a 80% usage there compared to maybe Boston Scott, Corey Clement getting the other 20%, maybe as a change of pace. Sanders is going to do everything. Even if he only gets 1,000 rushing yards, I think he's going to make up for it, a lot of it in receiving. He's going to be used everywhere.
And when you look at, the Eagles, a lot of people want to say, oh, well, they don't feature one back. They always use multiple backs. Well, that's kind of true, but Doug Peterson's been the coach there a couple, 3 years now, right? Has he ever had Miles Sanders?
No, he's never had that type of player.
Has he had anybody close to Miles Sanders? And that's why he's done that, because he's had Leonard, no, not Leonard Fournette. He's had the dude from New England that you hate, like Garrett Blunt. Like, I mean, come on, man.
He's never had a multi-threat back. He's
Right.
only had one or the other. Can they catch or can they run? Now
But-
he's got both.
But he started to figure out that he did. And it was right around week 11, week 12. Ironically, he had 11 carries in week 11 and 12 in week 12. But then after that, he went up to 17, 15, 19, and 20 Week 17 was weird. He only had 9 carries against the Giants, but still ran for 5.8 yards per carry. And in those weeks, from week 11 to week 16, guys, his points total, week 11 wasn't great with 6.7, but 12, 11.6, 13, 21.5, 14, 10.9, 15, 35.2, 16, 26.6. Doug Peterson. I'm not good with the name game today. I don't know why I'm struggling with that. Doug Peterson had an epiphany right around week 11, week 12, and he's like, I might have something here. And like you said, John, he was splitting carries with Jordan Howard the first half of the year, and then he just caught fire, and there was no looking back. Do I think he's going to be a guy that gets 20 to 25 carries a game? No, I think he can get 20 touches a game, and if he does, you're going to like what you get.
I also think I know Zach Ertz is used a lot. He's dependent on a lot by Wentz, and Alshon Jeffrey is still there. I think Miles Sanders is going to be their third option at receiver. I really do. I think he'll be more used in the passing game than we think this year. I know a lot of people are saying the rookies, but I think it's going to be Miles Sanders because he has experience.
From week 12 on, he never had less than 5 or 6 targets. That's a good number, man, for a running back.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
As a rookie, too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love Miles Sanders, so I'm glad we can finish on that note. Positive note. Sounds like we all like Miles Sanders. And we love breaking down the running backs. So the next show, we're going to do the top 12. Starting with Aaron Jones, and I'm going to give you guys a little hint on how that's going to go. It's probably not going to go very well for Aaron Jones. But I don't want to steal Chris Carson's thunder because that's his official theme song there. But yeah, I can't wait. We'll start with Aaron Jones, and of course we'll finish with Christian McCaffrey. You guys all know that. So can't wait to see you guys next time. Yeah, John's got him right there behind him. Until then, we are the Working Class Podcast. Please like, subscribe. Leave reviews on Apple Podcasts. That stuff really helps. And you guys good? You got anything?
Yeah. Do I have anything? No.
No? Tom, whatever your name is?
Yeah, me. Yes.
I'm sorry I was grumpy earlier. I will apologize on the air for that. I was very grumpy.
Okay. I left him a present earlier.
Yeah, we will leave that one out of it.
Yeah.
It had something to do with Chris Carson.
Yeah, it might have. Tom, you good?
I'm good.
All right. Chris Carson, you're going down. Next time we'll start with Aaron Jones, and I'll show you what I got for you, pal. So we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast. Thanks for supporting the show. Until next time.